Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Cynthia, and today I want to share a few of my experiences with the unseen realm, and mainly the ones that marked the beginning of my path, as well as what I have learned about how spiritual perception develops. And to do that honestly, I have to go back to childhood because, as most of you know, children are far more open to the unseen than adults. Because up until around the age of 7, before the change of teeth and the hardening of the physical body, they perceive beings. They feel atmospheres and they also hear things occurring in other realms. And this is because their souls are still deeply aware of the spiritual world. This openness, unfortunately, fades for most of us as we mature and life's demands take charge. Often, it is also because we are told that what we perceive is not real. But the good news is that this sensitivity does not vanish entirely. It can be revived and strengthened with the right attitude to inner work. So, towards the end of this video, I will share a few exercises from Rudolf Steiner that do exactly that. So, stay tuned. From childhood, I perceived presences and faced inexplicable events. The most consistent were orbs, the small, shimmering points of light that would appear briefly and then disappear. And alongside those presences, I also encountered beings of a very different nature. These were usually frightening, tall, dark, and had this hollow energy about them. And they were usually mute but still operated through shock and sudden intrusion. So, because of this, fear was a significant part of my relationship to the spiritual world for some years. I was very afraid of the dark, to say the least. And alongside this, physical sensations also accompanied my early experiences. I felt goosebumps at unexpected moments, the sensation of spider webs on my skin or across my face with nothing physically present. And also, regularly, I felt a cold circulation of air on a specific area of my right arm and the palpable smell of nail polish, and other times heavy tobacco. And I also experienced ringing in my ears and knowing exactly what people were going to say before they said it, and hearing my name being called out. And until I was around 25, this was simply how life was to me. I lived alongside those experiences without knowing exactly what to do with them. But what I came to understand is that the beings we encounter are connected to our own inner condition. So the frightening presences that dominated my early life were just a mirror of my own unresolved inner turmoil. But as I matured and began sincere inner work, the nature of my experiences shifted significantly. From around 2014, I wanted to understand what I was seeing and experiencing. So I began gathering information through books and by watching spiritual content on YouTube. And for a longer period of time, I moved through what could be called a new age bubble. I enjoyed hearing other people's experiences, particularly their healing journeys, what they had perceived, and how they had processed it. But over time, I found myself losing interest in large portions of it. The dominating focus on manifestation carried a shallow undertone, and the Galactic Council felt deeply deceptive. And in general, I did not enjoy an atmosphere where accountability to genuine truth was not expected of anyone. So, because of this, I deeply yearned for something more precise and more honest, something that seriously approached the question of what we are and why we are here. So I first came to Steiner's work through Gigi Young. She offered me a substantial outline of his cosmology and opened so many doors. She has meant a great deal to me as a teacher and still does. But at the same time, there is something irreplaceable about reading a spiritual teacher directly. By reading Steiner yourself and taking notes, sitting with difficult passages and meditating on what he's actually saying, that offers a different kind of encounter than receiving someone else's interpretation. And finding a teacher whose work you can go to directly is itself a part of the journey. So Rudolf Steiner is the one I work with most deeply, but Edgar Cayce, Max Heindel, C.W. Leadbeater, Helena Blavatsky, and Annie Besant are all figures whose work rewards careful first-hand engagement. So I will return to Steiner's framework later in this video when we look at the exercises. But before that, I want to talk about how spiritual perception tends to develop. For most people, spiritual perception begins almost imperceptibly through a sound, a flicker of light, a sudden change of temperature, or a feeling that someone is present when no one is there. So it is rarely dramatic, and that is precisely why so many people dismiss what they are experiencing before they have had the chance to understand what it is. So the starting point, though, is different for everyone. For some, it is a single striking event. For others, it is a slow accumulation of smaller things that eventually becomes impossible to ignore. And for many, it begins with a desire to heal, or simply from a sense that something in ordinary life is deeply wrong or not enough. And from there, most people reach for ways to gain information, either through books, teachers, meditation practices, whatever resonates and feels true. So, what I want to offer here is a way of understanding what you may already be perceiving. Spiritual perception, what is often called the clairs, arrives along a spectrum. Some people are naturally stronger in one area, while others find that several unfold together. And when they read a person or a situation, information arrives as a mixture of an image or a feeling, a sound, a deep inner knowing. So let me now walk through what each of these looks like in practice. Clairvoyance is the visual channel. This might be colors around a person, forms, symbolic images, or outright visions. For many people, it begins as peripheral impressions, things glimpsed at the edges of the visual field or flashes in the mind's eye rather than what we would call literal sight. Clairsentience is feeling, sensing the atmosphere of a space, the emotional state of another person, or the quality of a presence. This is often the most common and the most underestimated. Many people who consider themselves empaths are primarily clairsentient. Clairaudience is hearing. This can be external voices, sounds, tones arriving in the physical hearing, but it can also be internal, arriving as sounds, words, or music in the mind. Claircognizance is knowing, the sudden arrival of information or a certainty that appears without any explanation. This one is easy to undervalue because it does not feel dramatic, and unless you are paying close attention, you may mistake it for your own thoughts. Clairalience and clairgustance, the senses of smell and taste, are less common, though they do occur. The sudden smell of nail polish or tobacco with nothing physically present to explain it was one of my own earliest and clearest signals that something was entering my perceptual field. The important point is that you do not need to be equally developed in all of these. What matters is learning to recognize which channels are naturally stronger and beginning to work with them consciously. Most people are stronger in one or two, and the most effective early training works through those primary channels, whatever they happen to be. One of the most useful exercises I know for beginning to engage and strengthen the inner senses is the one I am about to share now. It is simple enough to start today, and it will only steal about 5-10 minutes of your time. So, first, choose an object in your mind's eye, something ordinary and something you know well. I used to work with a green apple. So begin with holding it in your imagination and then engage it through every sense, one at a time. What does it look like? And picture the color, the texture of the skin, and the subtle variations in shade. What does it smell like? What is its weight, its temperature in your hand? What sound does it make when you chew off a bite or when you slice through it? What is the taste? Now, the goal is to develop precision and presence. You are training your soul to perceive with intention rather than simply receive whatever arrives passively. This kind of exercise can feel very ordinary, but over time, it slowly begins to awaken the spiritual organs. Now I want to bring in 4 exercises from Rudolf Steiner. Each one is designed to transform what you already perceive into knowledge and to help you understand what you are seeing. As an example, there is a significant difference between perceiving an aura and knowing what part of the human constitution you are looking at. When most people speak about seeing auras, they are often perceiving the etheric body. And the etheric body is the luminous living field close to the physical body. It carries the forces of life and vitality. and its quality shifts with the health and inner condition of the person. Some also begin to perceive the astral body, which extends further and reflects the soul life of a person, the emotions, desires, and fears, and its colors and movements are far more volatile than those of the etheric body. The aura, on the other hand, reflects the qualities of the spiritual individuality and the degree of development a person has achieved. This is the most rarely perceived with accuracy and also the most difficult to distinguish. So let's now move on to the exercises. The first exercise is the exercise in comparison. This exercise can be extended across all four kingdoms: mineral, plant, animal, and human. And the exercise is to be carried out entirely through your mind's eye. You bring, for example, a rock and an animal before your inner perception and observe what you sense. Focus on their deeper qualities. The mineral carries only a physical body. With a plant, something living enters. The etheric body, the body of formative forces. An animal carries this as well, and alongside it, the astral body, the body of desire, of inner movement and response. The human being carries all three, and also something further: the I, the spiritual individuality. You allow these differences to rise within you as vivid, living experiences rather than just an intellectual observation. What you are cultivating is the direct perception of the qualities each kingdom emits, how each subtle body feels, what colors it carries, what feelings they stir in you. As mentioned earlier, many think they are perceiving an aura when what they are seeing is one of the subtle bodies. This exercise trains you to distinguish between them. Let's move on to the second exercise, which is an exercise in contemplation. For this exercise, it is very important that you work with your physical eyes. You start by placing a real plant seed before you and observe it with strong attention. It appears dry, small, inert, and yet something is present within it that the eye alone cannot account for: the fullness of a living future concealed within something almost invisibly small. The purpose of this exercise is to develop the capacity to perceive life directly, to sense through careful, patient observation what it is that distinguishes something living from something that merely appears so. Practiced honestly over time, it begins to open a perception that goes beyond what the physical eyes normally register. This third exercise is one Steiner regards as particularly essential. Most of us, if we observe ourselves honestly, do not finish our thoughts. We pick them up, follow them pathway, and let them go. Steiner considered the cultivation of thinking one of the most fundamental forms of inner work. So the exercise is to choose a thought and follow it through completely. You stay with it, examine it from several angles, and bring it to a natural conclusion. This should be carried out with the same quality of directed attention you bring to the contemplation exercises. Without regular practice, it is easy to underestimate how rarely we actually follow a thought to its conclusion. This is precisely why the exercise is so effective. It strengthens the capacity to Act from inner initiative rather than being carried along by association and distraction. The fourth exercise is the evening review. Each evening, before you go to sleep, you run through the events of your day in reverse order, by beginning with the most recent moment and moving back toward the morning. It is very important that you observe with calm patience and without analyzing or judging. You simply watch as though the events belong to someone else. And the reversal is important because moving against the natural flow of time loosens your identification with what happened. The events appear more objectively, and you begin to see yourself from a slight distance. For all four exercises, I recommend starting with 5 to 10 minutes daily. They work together toward developing the spiritual organs through which the unseen becomes perceptible. And what these exercises gradually produce is a deepening of what you are capable of seeing. As perception develops, not everything you encounter will be pleasant. So the most important thing you can do in those moments is to remain as present and peaceful as possible. Hold your ground with whatever inner steadiness you can gather. Allow your body to register what is happening without losing the thread of yourself. And bring the same quality of attention to it that you bring to the contemplation exercises. Also, remember that as your perception deepens, you will begin to sense things about people, situations, and generally what lies beneath the surface. It is never to be used for personal advantage or for positioning yourself above others. Always remain ethical. So I think this is enough for today. Let me now point you to where you can go deeper. So the exercises I have shared from Rudolf Steiner in this video are drawn from his book Knowledge of Higher Worlds and How to Attain It, which is freely available at the Rudolf Steiner archive. I will leave the link in the description below. I highly recommend reading it directly and thoroughly, and sit with the passages and let the material work on you over time. There is a depth in reading a teacher firsthand that no summary or interpretation can fully replace. I warmly welcome your reflections in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, remain strong and healthy. Blessings on your way.